But first, Senator Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, the independent from Vermont, the longest-serving independent in the House of Representatives history, now in the United States Senate, the independent from Vermont. And I think of Bernie as America's senator. He is neither Republican nor a Democrat. He speaks straight, and he's willing to take your calls, which we will do right after the first break here for the rest of the hour. Senator Bernie Sanders, welcome.
Good to be with you, Tom.
That's always great having you with us, Bernie. What's on your radar screen here today?
Well, I'm looking out my window here in Burlington, Vermont, and I'm seeing the leaves turning red. That gets me a little bit nervous. But other than that,
fall is coming.
We got a beautiful summer, and things are going well. I think Labor Day weekend is approaching, and I think, Tom, it's appropriate to remind people what Labor Day is about. And the struggles that are facing the middle class and working people today, something which I'm afraid is not talked about enough by the media, by the president, or in fact by Congress. As you know, it has been the unions in our country, made up of working people, who have fought for the 40-hour work week, something which we've had for so long, and yet today, with the decline of the middle class and the increase in poverty, we have more and more people who are working longer hours. You have people working 50, 60 hours a week trying to make ends meet, and we got to deal with that issue. We should remember. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to toss something out in this context, essentially a question for you. Franklin Roosevelt. This is a little 9-second clip for Franklin Roosevelt in the depths of the Depression. This is the comment that he made.
I see 1/3 of a nation ill-housed, ill-clad, ill-nourished.
And now we could probably replace the ill-housed and ill-clad with no access to health care, no access to medical health insurance, no access to job security. I mean, we have a crisis, a significant crisis of the middle class, and yet, during Roosevelt's time, we could mobilize. America was mobilized. Why not right now? What's going on?
Well, one of the things that's going on is you have a president, and this really, really upsets me. It's not only that his actions continue to favor the wealthy and the large corporations, but his whole discussion about the state of the economy is totally misleading. Since Bush has been president, you have more than 5 million Americans who have slipped into poverty. You have 8 million Americans who have lost their health insurance. You have seen the people at the very top become much wealthier, while median household income for the bottom 90% have declined. And yet, in the midst of all of that, you have a president who talks about a robust economy, a great economy, an expanding economy. It's like that the operation was a success, except the patient died. Yeah, the economy is doing really well if you're in the top 5%, especially if you are in the top 1%. I can tell you, Tom, that in the state of Vermont, we have many, many people who are not working one job, they're working 2 jobs, they're working 3 jobs, trying to cobble together an income, trying to cobble together some health insurance. You got families desperately looking for affordable health insurance. You have people losing good manufacturing jobs and seeing them replaced by low-wage service industry jobs without any benefits. That is really what's going on in the economy. And it's not just that Bush is on the wrong side of all of these debates. He and his administration are obfuscating in a really Orwellian way the reality facing the middle class. You may recall last month there was a poll done in the Wall Street Journal, and not inconsistent with other polls. And what the poll said is that 2/3 of the American people believe that this country was in a recession or heading toward a recession. Then you have this disconnect with the president telling us how great the economy is doing. Bottom line here is that despite an explosion of technology, despite a huge increase in worker productivity, the middle class is shrinking. And we need, as a nation, and it's appropriate to talk about what Roosevelt began to do, we need, as a nation, to focus on the needs of working families and lower-income people and not continue to worry about the wealthiest people who, in fact, have never had it so good. And we need to be looking at some of these issues from a moral perspective. A lot of our right-wing friends talk about family values. It is not a family value when we have, by far, the highest rate of childhood poverty in the industrialized world. And it's not a family value when 47 million Americans have no health insurance. And it's not a family value to give tax breaks to billionaires and then say we don't have enough money to take care of our veterans. So I think from a moral perspective, from an economic perspective, we've got to change priorities in this country. I think we have got to understand that in a democratic, civilized society, there is a very strong role for government to play in making sure that all of our people have at least a minimal standard of living.
Yeah, I was listening to a debate yesterday between Teddy Roosevelt and Wilson, or I'm not sure it was a debate. It was a speech that Teddy Roosevelt gave, and he was saying we are calling for more government involvement. This is Teddy Roosevelt, the Republican, right? And he said when these guys use the word liberty, what they mean is the liberty of the factory owner to work his or her employees to the point of death. When they're talking about liberty, they're talking about the liberty to accumulate massive amounts of wealth in ways that ultimately destroy any possibility of a middle class in America. And
so 100 years come and go, and nothing really changes. Now the liberty is, there was just a piece in the paper that some of the major automobile manufacturers, General Motors, I think Ford, were saying that if workers in the automobile industry do not take a substantial cut, they're prepared to move their jobs to Asia or to Latin America.
Well, and this goes back to Michael Moore's original movie, Roger and Me, which was when GM closed, I think five factories in Flint and moved them to Mexico.
But
that was 20 years ago.
Today, the liberty is not only working people longer hours for low wages, it's saying, hey, we're prepared to move to China, pay people there 30 cents an hour, and to bring those products back into the United States. That's what liberty is about. So I really think, the time is ripe, and I think more and more Americans are understanding that Bush's right-wing extremism is not working for them. But we need some bold and aggressive action on the part of Congress.
So when is Congress going to get a spine? When are they going to stop being afraid?
Well, that's a good question. I can tell you that for me, and I hope for some others in the Senate, Senate's a pretty conservative body, we're going to fight for a national health care program so that everyone, as a right of citizenship, has health care. Right now, we spend twice as much per capita on health care as any other nation in the industrialized world, and yet all of the social indices say that we are not doing as well as many other countries in terms of longevity, in terms of infant mortality. So we need to move toward a national health care program. I will be working on that. We need to reform our trade policies, which clearly have been a disaster in leading us to the race toward the bottom, shrinking the middle class, allowing corporations to throw American workers out on the street. We need, most importantly perhaps, is to realign our national priorities so that instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires to the tune of hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, we adequately fund education from preschool to graduate school so that all of our kids who have the ability can get the quality of education that they need. We need to rebuild our infrastructure. We need to deal with the crisis of global warming. And when we do those things, by the way, we are creating good-paying jobs in this country. So it's time for a lot of hard work on the part of the country.
You're calling, Bernie, for a fundamental reversal of the Reagan Revolution, you realize? Yeah. Amen. It's 16 minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann radio program on Air America Radio. Our guest for the first hour, Senator Bernie Sanders, the independent from Vermont, taking your calls up next. 1-866-303-2270, our telephone number. ThomHartmann.com, AirAmerica.com if you want to drop into our blog or our chat room.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann, defending America from the weapons of mass deception on Air America Radio.